When I decided to start writing my Substack, I chose to begin with AI because, quite frankly, it's what everyone in my field is thinking about right now. It's coming up in conversations with other appraisers, and I'm actually starting to see insurance adjusters experiment with it. And quite honestly, I am completely bombarded with ads for these tools. Every time I open up Instagram, there's another reel promising to identify the value of your art instantly. So I thought, fine, let's actually test it. I didn't test AI to prove it wrong. I tested because I wanted to be able to use it. As an appraiser, if a tool can help me catalog faster, identify medium, structure, data, give me the starting points, I'm interested. So I gave it something simple, an old painting I had at home. I uploaded it to see what it would do, how it would catalog it, whether it could identify the medium, give me a sense of age, just to understand how useful it might actually be in my process. Within seconds, it told me that the artwork was by Jose Gervich, a well-known 20th century artist, and we're somewhere between $12 to $13,000. Now, I knew immediately it got it wrong. It got the style right, it got the time period right, but what stayed with me wasn't that the attribution was wrong. It was how convincingly it got it wrong. Because if I didn't know better, I might actually believe I had a $12,000 Gervich hanging on my wall. But it neglected to register the initials in the lower right-hand corner, MR, because the painting was painted by Miriam Ross, my great grandmother. Well, that's when something clicked. AI is very good at culling from data and recognizing patterns, but that's not the same as understanding what it's looking at because what it sees is an image, a two-dimensional representation of a work captured under undisclosed conditions, flattened, simplified. And that doesn't account for what the work is in its entirety, how it feels, what it represents, the context in which it exists. When we look at it in person, the surface shifts depending on how you stand in front of it. The texture catches the light differently from different angles. The scale feels different. And beyond that, the condition, the medium, what's original, what's been restored. Those are not minor details. They're often the difference between something decorative and something truly significant. Now, as appraisers, we do sometimes work from photographs, but we do so with clearly defined limiting conditions and assumptions, with caveats, with context, and with full responsibility for the outcome. We don't just arrive at a number. We're required to explain how we got there, what we saw, what we were told, what we were not able to verify, the conditions under which we examine the work, whether in person or from photographs. We disclose these limitations and outline our assumptions, and we provide the context so that anyone reading the report can understand the framework in which that value was developed. And most importantly, we are required to stand behind it. It's supportable. It's defensible. We can walk into a courtroom and explain our reasoning. AI can't do that. It can give you an answer, but it can't give you accountability. It also doesn't know when it should be asking more questions or when something is missing. Now, this is where the conversation becomes much bigger than AI. Identifying something is not the same as valuing it because value doesn't exist in a vacuum. One object can have multiple values depending on the purpose of the valuation, the market it's being considered within, and the context in which it exists. Value is not a fixed conclusion, it's a framework, and that framework is built on context. Now, I want to make it clear I am not here to beat up on AI. I use it all the time. I speak to it. I use it to help structure my thoughts, whether I'm drafting a letter, building an analysis, or organizing ideas. I love it. I actually call it my BFF. Honestly, if there were a tool that could walk through a home with me, catalog objects, assign categories, take in what I'm seeing, and drop what's in my brain straight into the database, well, heck, I'd use it immediately. And if it could take measurements too, I mean, I might have to marry it. My back would certainly appreciate it. But here is the distinction. I use AI to support my process, not to replace my judgment. I don't allow it to form opinions or conclusions. I use it to bring clarity and structure to thinking that's already mine. Because the moment you move from organizing information into interpreting value, you're not just saving time, you're giving up the very thing that defines you and your expertise, your reasoning, your experience, and your judgment. Now, to go back to our painting, I'm reminded of something very simple. Value lives in nuance. It lives in experience, in comparison, in physically engaging with an object. You know that moment when you see something online and then encounter it in person and it takes your breath away? Or the opposite, when something looks compelling in an image and completely falls flat in reality. And once you've seen it in person, you can never unsee that image. Well, that experience has an impact on how you value something. But the painting holds another kind of value as well, not because of what it looks like, but because my grandmother made it, because it's been lived with, because it carries memory of it sitting in the living room where I saw it as a child. AI can't see or experience that. It can't tell you what something appears to be in a single moment, not what it has meant over time, the life that it's lived, the hands that have touched it, the people that were moved by it. So, in the end, will AI replace appraisers? Yes, some of them. It will replace those who remain static and who rely on identification without interpretation. And those who haven't cultivated their own connoisseurship, but those who recognize that value is layered, physical, contextual, and deeply personal. And those who evolve alongside these tools, who use them to enhance rather than replace their thinking, well, they will become essential, not less. And that ultimately is why I'm starting here. Not because this is about AI, but because this is about how easily we confuse information with understanding, how quickly we accept answers without questioning the context behind them, and how often we overlook the layers that actually create value because they're harder to see, harder to measure, and harder to explain. The reason I started writing this is to open up the conversation between appraisers, advisors, and collectors, and really anybody who's thinking about value, not just about what things are worth, but how we determine what matters in objects, markets, and in our lives. Because value isn't something that you assign from a distance. It's something that you come to understand through experience and context, and sometimes through who made it. I hope you'll all join me in this process as I start to take what's been packed away in my brain for years, built through experience, instinct, and observation, and finally unpack it and put it into words more clearly, both written and spoken. Not using AI to replace the thinking, but to help me bring it to focus.